The following is a conversation with Jim Thalman, a great actor, producer, and a wonderful friend. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, like it, share it with others, and if you really, really enjoy it, there is a Patreon link in the description. Hey Jim, how are you?
I'm well, brother. How about yourself?
Very good. Good to see you.
It was a pleasure.
We had a nice party yesterday, I
Yes.
guess. Watching the Tombstone was a great movie.
One of the great classics of all time. And an ode to a bygone era in a style of filmmaking that didn't depend on special effects and gore and big explosions. But great stunts and even more so incredible writing and some brilliant performances.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie since I originally saw it in its theatrical release when I was in college. And to go back and revisit it. And it's always joyful for me to see actors that are now huge stars in very small roles. Like Billy Bob Thornton was in it. He had, one scene in the movie, two scenes rather. He was hilarious. He was lovely to watch, but it was, a very young, this movie is 32 years old. So they shot it 33 years ago. Very young, kind of chubby, very innocent looking. And now to see his work, on Landsman or anything in his storied career is always joyful. I love seeing, when that occurs.
I don't know if people realize how difficult it is to prepare for this kind of roles and how difficult it is to actually encapsulate the character that well, consistently, over multiple days of shooting, over multiple takes, repetitions. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how that works.
Well, every actor comes from their own place. Some are method, some Meisner, some are Atlantic, some are Hagen, some are Chekhovian, some are Stanislavski. The list goes on and on. So how each of those actors prepared, I have no idea. But I know the basic rule for me has always been, you have time. The script is sent to you sometimes 6 months in advance. Do the prep. It makes everything so easy. Because the second you start shooting principal, the actual shooting of the movie, then you're in a chaotic environment where the ground beneath your feet shifts on a continuum. There are so many variables that filmmakers will inevitably face that are way out of their control, way out of your control. But if you did your prep, you're ready to rock. You come. I'm always very kind of light and lively on set. I don't take myself too seriously. I crack jokes with the crew between takes. I know what I'm doing. There's no concern about it. I'm not a method guy by any stretch of the imagination. Method guys, some are incredible. Others are royal pains in the asses, right? And I've worked with both. But that could be said about any style of acting and any type of actor. For me, it's just, as they say, do it in pre is free. And that is, by and large, I like to know a brilliant actor by the name of Steve Easton, who was also a mentor and coach for all my years when I was in Los Angeles. Always said, you should be able to get through all of your dialogue on one breath. No acting loud, just rip it out. And then when you're in the scene, when you're in the moment, the lines just kind of come at you. There's no prepared way to deliver a line. I don't decide on how the line is going to come, when it's going to come, because I don't know what my leading lady is going to do, or I don't know what the hero of the movie is going to do. I have no way. There's only, to quote Cassavetes, there's you and me and the unknown all around us. And that's where the magic happens, the capturing a lightning in the bottle, if you will. And that's where it becomes really fun because it becomes playful. Theater is completely different, of course, but I always say making movies is like when you're rehearsing a play and you're just getting off book and all of these things that you could have never seen in the script start to appear. That's where we make a movie, right? That's because I don't have to repeat the performance ever. I do have to be aware of my use of props, my hand gesture or lack thereof. Body language, yes, that has to match for continuity. The tonality and subtext of the line can change take to take to take because they're only going to use one take for that one singular moment. And that's why a lot of us are very appreciative of what editors do, and also terrified because they are looking at a different set of facts as per the notes that came from Scripty or from the director on what takes to use. And performances are made in post or destroyed sometimes. I often find the editor to be the unsung hero of a movie, but that's not all editors. And you always have to be wary of who's editing the film. I was on a film once and the first editor crapped out and the DP got involved. And every shot in the movie was all his most beautiful shots, not the best performances. And we're like, oh yeah, it looks beautiful. And why did you use that take? Well, it looks beautiful. It's like, okay, thanks, buddy. So it's for a filmmaker, well, for an actor, it's a leap of faith. You are trusting oftentimes a whole crew of strangers to do their jobs so you can do yours. You have no control over that. Your biggest leap of faith is placing your heart and soul in the director's hands. Say, okay, mold me. I'll go anywhere you want to go. But for a younger actor, that's a little more difficult. I've got enough gray that I'm okay taking leaps of faith.
How is the relationship between the director and actor? What do you expect from the director? What do you look for?
It varies so dramatically. I have been fortunate to work with a lot of the same directors on multiple pictures, but there have been directors where they don't even talk to you. They're all with the crew. They don't really know how to talk to actors. They have their vision and you're serving that vision. You have to be able to work in all scenarios, which again brings us back to prep. You know what you're doing, then it's like, okay, fine, whatever you need. I try and be as stress-free as possible. Film sets are my happy place. I don't concern myself with the chaos around it, which is, again, why I try and keep it loose. Jodie Foster's famous, who's in one of my eyes, one of the greatest actors of the 20th century, one of the greatest actors working today. And, I've seen interviews of her. She's like, I play grab ass with the crew all day long. But then when the camera rolls, she's a dynamic force. Something to be said about being in that neutral, loose space, as opposed to, beating yourself up in a corner to get emotionally ready for a scene that's going to oftentimes read flat.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like working with you because you played in my film, was that you follow the direction and the vision of the director. So, for example, when I gave you the back story of the character, you follow it, you create character around it. But then when you deliver the takes, you give options to the editor and the director, right? This is what you kind of said, but this is so brilliant. The options are subtle. It's not like everything is completely different and then you have no way to cut the continuity of the scene. But they're subtle differences, but they can create a perfect pacing, a perfect emotional arc. It's just, I love it. And this is extremely rare, I would say, with the actors I was working with.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I was 2005. I wrote and co-produced a short film that I also acted in. So for the first time in my career, I was able to see the entire process from prep through principal all the way through post. And I'm sitting in the post house Cobble Studios, and the editor said something to the AE in a very, very interesting, thought-provoking way. And the director was there, Michael, as well. And he said, you see this? If an actor does two takes the same way, you shoot him 2 takes and move on. If he's giving you variation all the way through, shoot him until he runs out of shit. You'll have much more latitude in post. And it was the first time I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because now you're guaranteeing you'll get more takes, which is a little bit selfish, I'll admit. But more importantly, you're giving a whole team of craftspeople opportunities to create something dynamic that, again, you may not be privy to. You're just giving them options. You're there to be the answer to possibly the most dangerous thing a producer ever does, put an actor in front of the camera. A producer, all they do is mitigate risk as much as they can and keep the train on the tracks, if you will. But the one variable that they have no control over is what an actor is going to do when the camera starts rolling. So give them options. Always give them options.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever told you, but as a kid, I was an actor.
Okay.
The problem was I had no talent. So I was in the theater. I really didn't. And my theater was pretty good, like the amateur theater, but there were some really talented people. I was one of the less talented, but what I remember, I loved it so much. I loved being different people and playing this. I was, for example, playing Crime and Punishment, a negative character, Luzhev. What was his name? I'm trying to remember. The guy who is like, trying to force Avdotia Romanovna to his will. And it felt like, I was 14, and it felt like I felt so empowered. I was like this evil guy smoking cigar and like going after this girl who was, by the way, my first love. So that was, something which was very difficult, because I'm like being nasty to the girl I absolutely very difficult thing. So it's just such a wonderful life. Like, I don't know if people realize, people probably think that it's like about the fame and so on. That's not. It's about the experience of actually being in a character.
It's more than that, I'd say, even so. The vast majority of us will never achieve the fame and celebrity that mass audiences know. And when I say the vast majority, I mean like 99.9% of us. That does not stop you. It's the joy of making movies with a bunch of other mavericks that are there to create something that will last far longer than we will. Once in a while, I'll, for some reason, a Google prompt will, appear on my Google searches, and it's some review of a movie that I had just done or had done many years prior. And I'd look at it, I'm like, God, I was young, right? And there's that joy, right? The fact that the film will take on its own life long after you've left this planet. The experiences that you were exposed to that normally you would have never been exposed to. Spending time in a hospital, a fire station, a police station, a prison. I did a prison picture once, and literally many of the extras were ex-cons. And, I talked to everyone on set, and like these guys wanted to teach me how to, how they make ink for the tattoos, how they make hooch in the toilets by fermenting the fruit that they steal from the cafeteria. All these, like, who would know these things? But I'm listening to him like, this is rich life experience. It takes you to countries and states that normally I would have never gone to or had never seen. And again, I'm this type of guy where it's like, I love the conversations with the diner waitress and the crossing guard and the local sheriff and all of that, because, well, hell, I don't know if I'll ever see these people again, but they've got a story to tell. Let's hear it. Why not? If anything, it's a life lesson, and it's fodder for cocktail parties, because you learn things that all too many of us in American society are siloed in echo chambers where we only hear opinions of people who agree with us in our own little immediate circle. Well, Go shoot a movie in Alabama. Go shoot a movie in Arizona, or New Mexico, or North Dakota, or Massachusetts, or Vermont. It's a big country with a lot of different opinions, and I love to hear them all. I really do.
Yeah, and it's so wonderful to actually to see how people get immediately excited when you do these movies, especially small indie movies like we do, right? Like
Right.
you go to some village somewhere. Like I went back to my village in Poland and I said, I'm shooting a Second World War movie. I have no budget. Anybody help, right?
Right.
And I had like my schoolmates helping. I had like guy who had a old motorcycle from the Second World War because his grandpa had it. It was awesome, and everybody contributed. Everybody had fun. We're completely exhausted at the end, like dead, like 16 hours days.
Yes.
Of course, because first of all, we don't have union, in Poland. We don't have SAC after and ACTA. We don't need to do that. So we don't follow any rules. We get exhausted, but it was so much fun. It's just unforgettable experience. It's like a separate, different entire life, especially when you do a feature, right? So this 1 month or 2 months on set, just another lifetime.
And you create bonds because everything's in a hyper concentrated manner that, well, you are living with these people, especially if you're on location. You're all in the same motel, hotel, or a handful of Airbnbs, right? It's like you're up on set, you're up at 5, you're on set at 6, you work until 6, and then I'm always, when I have a chance, because an actor will always wrap before the crew. So, but whenever I have the chance, I will go and dig a fire pit for everyone. And I love my big giant bonfires. And in the morning, I'll get up before everyone. I'll take a walk. I'll collect firewood. So after we wrap, we sit around a blazing fire, teasing each other with a beer or a glass of wine or whatever it is. And, usually by the end of the day, if you have 1 or 2 glasses of wine, you're like, all right, it's 9 o'clock, time for bed. It just lays you out and you're fine. But I have a lot of wonderful memories in front of bonfires with some actors and crew members who I've done multiple pictures with, and some who I haven't seen in 25 years, but I remember their name, their face, and their story vividly because of that moment that we all shared together. I worked with a filmmaker by the name of Lou Pappas, who is no longer with us. Beautiful guy. We did 6 movies together over a 10-year period. And he always used to say, Jimmy, it's a battle of never enough. Here we go again. And that's what making an indie is. It's never enough time, never enough money, never enough personnel, never enough equipment. But somehow this, crew of 15 or 20 people band together for 30 days of insanity to make this film that then you go your separate ways, and a year and a half later, you reunite in a darkened movie house, and everyone gets to see their contribution up on the screen. And that's kind of what I love about filmmaking overall. It doesn't matter what position you're in. We're all very competitive. Everyone wants to be the best that they can be. That's hair and makeup, that's costume, that's camera, that's sounds, it's the actors, everyone wants their best work to be out there. So people bring a heart and soul to making a movie that you will never see in corporate America.
Oh yeah, and also everybody's so professional, or they are out very quickly.
Yeah, there's too much competition.
Yeah, it's just I don't think people realize that. Like you can have entire corporate careers slacking off by being good in political fights in a corporate ladder, but you can't survive slacking off on a set ever. It's just impossible.
You're fired on the day.
You fired. Yeah. And by the way, you know that I met my wife through firing a sound guy.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. What happened was, like basically I was shooting a student film, my diploma film, I think, and not diploma, student film. And I got a guy, I don't want to say the name, right? But I got a guy who basically completely screwed up entire day of shooting. It was unusable. The sound was unusable. So I got so angry at everybody's like, I will now say that I fired him. Oh, how could you fire a guy? No, like everybody was pissed off because we can't use the footage.
Right.
We couldn't do ADR in this case. It was like very it was very difficult to do the idea is recording dialogue in post-production, right? So I fired him, but I couldn't reach him over the phone because I think he knew that he screwed up because I checked the footage, the recording. And I went to Facebook and I'm sending a message. You are fired. You screwed up our day. And then I see among his friends, because Facebook shows friends. She used to show, I don't know now because I'm not there. And I see this beautiful woman. So I'm like, you are fired to the guy, and then to the girl, hey, we have a common friend.
Oh, no.
The guy I just fired, right? That is my wife.
That's also the movie industry in a microcosm.
Very risky, because if they, unfortunately, they were not close friends, so she didn't give up on this. But yeah. So that's how I met my wife, by firing a guy.
That's one of your best career moves ever.
Exactly, right. Sometimes it pays off. But yeah, everybody's it's just so professional, so dedicated, hardworking. It's just I don't know anything comparable, like anything. Being on set is a dream. It's a triple life. So yeah, that takes me back to your recent, well, not really that recent career, to your development of a career, because you are an established actor with 22 plus awards, right?
I try not to get too caught up in all of that. There's a brilliant interview with Brando and Katie Chong, who is a very famous correspondent, when we were kids. And she interviews him, and she's like, you're the best, and this and that. And he looks at the dog. He's like, I forget the dog's name. He says, he's the best. He acts like he loves me when he wants food. It's like, this guy, I mean, he really was the best, but I think there's certain freedom not comparing yourself to others.
Okay.
And there's always a danger. I'm always happy to win an award, and I'm grateful. But the truth is, I didn't get there myself. The writer got me there. The director got me there. The other actors got me there. The camera department got me there. I just get to stand up on, a podium and say some hopefully thoughtful and kind words. But other than that, it truly takes a village, without sounding trite, because there are so many variables. So we always make the joke, making a movie is tap dancing through a minefield while blindfolded. Right? Here's one wrong move, blows up a film. Yeah. That's why producers are of such great value. Everyone's of great value, but producers often, it's like, when they do their job well, nobody notices. They only notice when things blow up. And then it's like, everyone's like coming at them. You got to solve this. You got to fix this problem. So it's interesting. And I always try and keep that in mind. And it forces you to be humble, because there's a lot of brilliant actors, not only in this country, but around the globe. And even more so, there's a lot of brilliant filmmakers and writers, and you need all of them to make a movie that's even award-worthy.
Yeah. Do you think with the development of AI, there is going to be do you think, because I talked to your producer, right? And he's very worried about how AI will affect the film industry. Do you think it will actually really eliminate acting?
No, not in the least.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the filmmakers that we have on the MovieVue platform is a guy by the name of Starhand. And him and I met when our films were on the 2013 festival circuit. We just hit it off. Brilliant, brilliant guy. He does AI films, but he also does a lot of very heartfelt, beautiful, emotionally driven films. And so we hop on the phone and we'll debate everything, movies and politics, a couple of times a year, and they're great conversations. And he said, listen, AI is at least 5 to 7 years away from where everybody thinks it is today. If I'm going to shoot a movie, I still need my actors, I still need hair and makeup, I still need costume, I still need a gaffer, still need a sound mixer, I still need a director, still need a producer, I still need camera, still need a script. Those are all done by human beings. The difference is we shoot a scene on a subway, all practically. and then I throw it into AI, and now it's a carriage ride into the mouth of hell. That's where AI makes a difference. That's where Unreal Engine will make a difference in a lot of filmmakers' careers. Who it does affect is if you're a fan of the Marvel movies, those 150 to 200 scenic graphic computer generated artists that you see at the end of the film. Their jobs are in jeopardy 5 to 7, 10 years down the line. I don't think their jobs are in jeopardy today. And at the end of the day, the industry has always shifted with new technologies. Yes, we can shoot movies on iPhones. Does it make DPs go away? Right? Does it make first ACs go away? Does it make DIT go away? Which, when I first started making movies, we shot on film. There was the second AC, who was the camera loader, who dealt with all the actual raw film stock, and then exposed film stock. Okay, so camera loader went away, but he or she then became DIT, which serves as the same function. Now, a lot on the indies, DIT will also be the AE, assistant editor, in handling all of the footage that then can be delivered to the post house if they're trying to assemble rough cuts for dailies, depending on what the production team wants to do. But the process changes. It's just the technology shifts. I don't know where the technology will be in 7 years, but I will say to anyone that is going into the industry or in the industry, keep your skills sharp and adjust with the times. No one wants to be an Archie Bunker on a film set, talking about a bygone era. Yes, I do miss shooting on film. The new technology allows for a less expensive shoot and a lot more latitude in what your shooting ratio will be. But in the same respect, I remember shooting on film. It was, your takes were valuable. Didn't work with actors that stammered through the first 5 takes, like, shoot it again, shoot it again, right? It was like, dude, we're shooting this whole film on a 6-to-1 ratio. You get it right, or you're now off-screen dialogue.
Yeah. Because it was expensive to develop. The film was expensive and
to purchase and to develop, and then to do your digital intermediary.
Yeah.
And then your final output would then go back to film.
Yeah, exactly. But, well, there is also many positive things about the technology, this full democratization. We can see it in the history of cinema when digital cameras came about. Actually, when the first 16 millimeter and an 8 millimeter came about, right? Suddenly you didn't have like a track, like this stable size camera for 35 millimeters, but you could hold it. And that created entire genres, right? Like cinema verite and the French nouvelle vague and so on. All of this thanks to the technical developments. And then digital cameras created indie films. Sure, some indie filmmakers in 90s and then 2000s shot on a film if they were traditionalists. I love the look of 35 millimeter. I just love how it looks like. But the motion blur, and all of this, the depth of colors now matched by red cameras and so on. 35 millimeter is awesome, but it's so much easier to do it on digital cameras. And now I even slightly disagree here with you. Yes, like every DP I work with wants a professional digital camera, but I see like a good iPhone is really like a camera from 10 years ago quality. It's really there.
You mean the original? Well, I'd go a little further. The original DSLRs, right?
Yeah, exactly. At least the original. It's a different look. It's like it's softer, but you can work with it in post-production, and that also makes it. What I mean is, all of this democratizes cinema so much that I'm very optimistic about the future rather than pessimistic. Like when I talked to Ian, right, your producer, he was saying maybe the cinema films will disappear and will be all in VR. watching, and participating. I don't think so. When we were watching yesterday Tombstone, I was thinking about it. I was like, that's not the same experience. It's different experience. You don't have close-ups. You cannot see the emotion on a huge screen, right? Because in VR, you are there. That's like being more like in theater, maybe participatory theater, like Grotowski, right? But it's not the same. It's completely different medium. So I think there will be a golden age of cinema with the AI participation, not the end of cinema. People will be able to do things like, for example, as an indie producer, let's say, my biggest problem, other than paying actors so they can actually eat food, like wage, which is survivable, is location costs. Like I want to shoot, for example, in here hospital, right? I have to have $2 million to $10 million insurance. I have to rent this hospital room for 3,000 to 10,000 per day minimum, right? Now I will be able to put you into a hospital bed, which I will rent somewhere, and everything else will be digital. Awesome. And will be free practically, right? That's great for me. That's amazing. And yeah, it will be different performance, but it will be so much more accessible to everybody when you can describe a scene and the environment happens.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the production designers create the worlds we play in. And I think production designers will often build in practical, physical elements onto a set that help create the reality. For those of us who have been forced to do green screen work, there is a limitation on the actor, right? It's very difficult to play to this tennis ball, that tennis ball, and that tennis ball, as opposed to just being able to pick up this glass or lean across the table. I think there needs to be a marriage of the two. I love what production designers do. Every time I've been on a movie and art department's building the set of, say, my house or my office, I'll go visit and I'll hang out with the art department. I started out in art department, so I'm a big fan of what those cats do. And I'll just hang with them for the day. I'll, have lunch. They'll kind of poke around the set and like, what are you doing here? What are you doing there? Again, I genuinely appreciate what all the craftspeople do on a film set. And I do worry about the risk that you run where it's like, where everything becomes digitized and the only practicality may be these chairs, this glass, the table, you and I, which again, if you're armed with great dialogue and working across of a great actor, then again, it's the Cassavetes, you, me, and the unknown all around us. But so I like to move around the space. I'm not one of these, sit in a chair, do nothing, right? I don't ascribe to that. I want to own the space. I want to move through the space. Of course, the director will then pick points of like, okay, land here. Why don't we have this little dialogue exchange? Cross over to her there. Maybe lean in, see how she reacts, and then he'll pull that actor aside and say, okay, when he leans into you, what does that do to you? I want to smack the shit out of him. Okay, go for it, right? That kind of stuff is imperative. And often what I have seen is you're working with a green screen, you kind of glance at it, it's like, okay, throw a look that way and we're going to drop something in. We don't see the world, and that world becomes less real to the audience because it's not that real to us. Green screen work, without a doubt, is a separate skill set that actors may or may not have to master. The technology is changing so fast, and, Ian and I are producing a film together, and we're doing these comps with Unreal Engine and our special effects artist. There's great stuff, cityscapes, destroyed cities, spaceships, and aliens, and it's a sci-fi horror film. So that kind of stuff is great. But the spaceship itself is a practical set. that the actor will race through and the monsters will race through, but then the Unreal Engine will extend the length of that ship to 100 meters, 200 meters to give it the massive feel that you would need to sell the idea that they've been in space for a long time. And that is that I'm a bigger fan of, because the other thing is you could show the actor this. Often where I am on movies where I produce, I run tests on everything with every department. And I'm happier to pay a little bit of money up front to run the tests rather than blow through cash while we're on set trying to figure it out, or break the bank in post trying to fix it. I love, the camera department is like, listen, we need to get over there. All right, fine. Get your gaffer, get your camera. We'll do a half day. Run your tests. Is that enough time? Yeah, it's enough time. Because, in indie, everything is a dollar cost comparison. But the more answers that you can have up front, the better off you will be. And so when working with Unreal Engine and the AI technologies, we're running these tests long before we're even attaching cast members. Because then we could share it with the entire team. They can refine it. So then by the time the cast comes in, it's like we're literally sending them video files. So this is your practical set. This is how it's going to. We're trying to inform them of as much information, sounds odd, inform them with as many tools as possible to give them their best opportunity to do their best work. I've done quite a few CG, green screen, hence CG films, and I don't think it lasts that much longer. As it is, the LED panels and projected imagery is already taking over. Now, the big guys are doing it. They do it on the Star Wars and those type of projects. But it's pretty incredible because now the image is projected onto a screen in the space. So you look and you see the dinosaur, the alien, the monster, the army, the cavalry, the horse, whatever it may be. And that will inform them. And these projected panels are now starting to pop up in sound stages across the United States. In fact, they just did a film with Sean Penn, and I forget the other actor. It's the film, most of it, if I'm not mistaken, takes place on a ride from JFK to Manhattan. They're in a cab on a soundstage. They don't go anywhere, but all the cityscape and everything you see outside the windows is projected this way. So I think that's a really kind of new and radical way of making movies. I'm very curious about it. And I think it will help the ability to create worlds that are much bigger, because practical stuff is expensive. A couple of horses are expensive. A Jeep, a tank, a spaceship, that kind of stuff is very expensive. Maybe you have one horse and then you're dealing with... I actually saw some AI technology where everything was AI with the exception of the actor. The horse, the fire, the campfire, the background, the setting sun, all of it.
That's kind of what I mean. I didn't mean that AI will be a better version of a green screen filmmaking. I agree 100% with you. I don't even know how people can do that. We had to kind of do that for our volumetric holographic film when you had to play against non-existent persons. Very difficult, right? But it was not even green screen. It's just that the technology limits your space where you're shooting. But I mean that everything else, like everything which would normal. So how I think it will work in the future is like this. It will be more like theater. So you still have space. There are still objects you can interact with. these objects just don't need to be perfect. So you don't need to have a perfectly furnished and light room, which takes you, you take a soundstage, build it for 3 days, make it perfect, cost you $20,000 to make it perfect, right? It will be very simple. It will be like in the first films, like when everything was shot in studio and there was like a big painting in the background.
Seeing it, yes.
Right? So that's how I imagine it. It will be like, come back to the traditional way of shooting. Actors here still have a freedom of moving around, interacting with objects. But let's say, we use this cup, right, in a scene. And then in post-production, we say, oh, this cup is not from a correct era. It should be a Starbucks cup. And then we're like, Starbucks cup. Perfect, right? Perfect replacement of objects. Interaction with physical objects which are not exactly of the shape. And then you can match it, right? Things like that will improve very quickly, which will lower the cost. And the set might not need to be high quality. With 8K cameras, we had to go so much higher quality of the set design because everything is visible, right?
Right.
With the skin, with the same thing, right? Like everybody now have every pore on your skin is visible in camera, which was not in 35 millimeter because of motion blur and so on, right? And the lighting. So I think these elements will super lower the cost of production. Not that I didn't mean that it will be all done in a green screen environment, which I agree would be very difficult for actors and destroying the performance. And I think that will democratize access to cinema, because then you just need actors, a camera man, like you need the similar small crew, and you still need the production designers and art department. It's just that they are working a little bit differently. Like your example with the second AC loading the film and then switching to the IT, right? This is what will happen with production designers. They will design objects in that scene, and then some of them will be real objects, some of them will be to be replaced in post-production, and then they go to the digital space and do the same design, the same beautiful color mapping and everything they do, all the artistic elements of it, but in virtual space. When the budget doesn't allow for building real sets, right? So that's what I mean. It's just a technological jump which will be tremendously saving a lot of money for the production. So, and also freedom of choosing the camera angle, right? Like right now, it's if you want to shoot a scene from different perspective, you have to have all this perspective at least partially covered, right? So you're building a hospital room, then you have to have maybe at least 3 walls of this hospital room. Otherwise, you are very limited how you shoot it. That will be eliminated, right? I will be able to shoot from any camera angle and then fix it. Just say like, put the hospital bed there where there is nothing in post-production, right? With AI. I think this is tremendously helpful.
Tremendously helpful, perhaps, but you'll have to remember that you'll have to light in a manner that will allow that, and you'll wind up spending quite a bit more in lighting and in your electrical department to make sure that mapping actually can occur. Ian and I make sure we always have our VFX artist on set with us when we're doing stuff like this, because Ryan Kelly, who is our VFX artist, will be able to say, all right, this will not work because of X, Y, and Z. This is how you fix it, and then we could map it in a very real manner. So now you've got extra cost, perhaps not as much as building the set, but it doesn't completely eliminate it doesn't eliminate the cost, and it causes a different set of problems that have to be solved. And I'm not a technological guy at all. I'm just a trusting one that has picked up artists and craftspeople that I admire deeply along the way and trust them and say, all right, watch my 6. We're concerned about this. And that is something that I think, an experienced filmmaker will know. And I hope an inexperienced filmmaker seeing this is like, oh, that's a good idea. I better kind of think about this before I go down this rabbit hole. Because often audiences will pick up on things they they don't know what they're seeing is wrong. An industry person will see the lighting is wrong. An audience member won't see it or won't know why, but intuitively, like, something's off. And it takes them out of the movie.
Yep.
And the last thing you want to do is ever take your audience out of the movie.
Yep.
You want to sit them down and you want to tell them a story for 90 minutes to 2 hours to, whatever the runtime of the film is, and keep them there.
Yeah, I know what you mean with the lighting. It's very difficult to match it for post-production when you add a special effect. But I mean, that will be where AI helps. There is this process of delighting. It's research right now, kind of, but the idea is that you light the scene like I light here, very diffuse light, no shadows, no high key, nothing, right? And then in post-production, you add it and it's perfect, right? So you light in post-production. So this way you can match your VFX effects. It's really getting there. So I think it will help. But this is a kind of a secondary question, because this is like me being optimistic about people not losing their jobs in the next few years, but rather having more like a renaissance of indie films. Thanks to the tech.
Well, I think a lot of us are praying for a renaissance in indie film because there is not brilliance coming out of the studio system right now. They have been corporatized to such an extent, and it's not the first time it has happened, ebbs and flows going back to the 1950s. You get ebbs and flows of corporate America coming in, and you get these bunch of bean counters that don't know jack about making movies. They think they have an idea of what, and then we see these films that are not inspirational. They're just kind of big eye candy films. Now, I'm not against tentpole films. Tentpole films have kept the studios going for decades. But when you commit all of your dollars and resources to a tentpole, they're not producing the smaller films that are developed and executed by skilled craftsmen, you're destroying the entire model. And we see this. I mean, the studios hurt themselves in a lot of ways by all jumping on the streaming bandwagon. I'm in touch with, independent theater owners. Ian and I want to bring back the theatrical release. And, these are small theaters that are hurting because people are not going to the movies. This day and date release is an abomination. Why am I going to the movies when I could sit on my couch and see it on my own home screen on the same night? When I was a kid growing up, a movie would be in its theatrical release 3 months, 6 months. I think E.T. was in its theatrical release for 18 months before moving to the other sales windows. Now everything is hyper. It's in hyper speed is what I'm looking for. Everything happens at such an accelerated pace that a movie comes and goes, and that's that. And the only thing we know about are the really big Marvel films and that kind of stuff, which, it's got its place. I'm not anti-Marvel. I'm not a fan, but I'm not anti. But I want to see more movies that are of all gamuts. Many of my favorite films were directed by incredible directors with great scripts, but they were smaller fare. The Serpent and the Rainbow, right? Brilliant film. And Jacob's Ladder and Angel Heart. They were studio films, but they weren't big tentpole films. And they were influential films. Now what we have is everything is up here and then lots of indies down here. I am pro-indie, of course, because I believe that all the innovation that happens in film happens at the indie level first. All the just the movements you're talking about, cinema verite and the like, happened at the independent level. John Carpenter, who I'm a huge fan of his films, I grew up on his films. They're amongst my favorite films. So he said, the worst thing they ever did to me was give me money, right? Too much money destroys, I think, the ingenuity of the filmmaker and their team. What we want to see is radical new ways of telling stories. Stories that surprise us, that confound us, that more importantly make us feel. It was if you ever read the Bob Evans biography, Kid Stays in the Picture, Paramount at the time was 28th out of 28 studios, and Gulf Western was looking to sell it off for parts, all the equipment, turn the land in Hollywood into high rises, and Evans had a radical new idea: let's make movies that make people feel. And that gave birth to a decade of cinema that is arguably the golden age of Hollywood, right? From Chinatown and The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, Rosemary's Baby and Love Story and Cotton Club, these kind of movies that
My
really,
favorite era.
right?
You know that
Without a
people don't
doubt.
watch it. Everybody watch 1970s. Watch 1970s movies. They're best.
It was an incredible time. But this was a guy trying to buck the system. And right now we're seeing a lot of the same. The technocrats and the corporates have taken over what is a domain that should be left alone. Let artists make art in their own manner. And if you really want to do something worthwhile and provocative and forward-thinking, throw a little money at those artists. Ian and I, our big concern is, when we came into the business, we were doing our small budget indies. And if you got a distribution deal, you had the opportunity to make money and go make your own. Make your next film. Develop your next script. Now, everything is done on our own dime. And distribution is like, no big deal. What we thought was the great democratization of cinema when the streamers came along actually became a death knell. Because the corporates are making all of the money, and the royalty payments that the filmmaker receives from those streaming platforms is nil. You get 50, 80, 100,000 streams a quarter, and your royalty check is nothing. That's part and parcel why we launched MovieVue, because we want to promote the next generation of filmmaker. We want the rebels and the radicals and all the individuals and artists and craftsmen to go and make movies that make us question, that make us feel, that make us think, that say something with their storytelling. That's why we completely changed the payout structure of what the filmmakers actually receive. So we pay our filmmakers a minimum of $1 a stream. So now for an indie that was a small budget that gets 100,000 streams, you just paid back your investors. Guess what? You get to do it again. Because there's nothing worse than a producer going, you can't go to the well more than once. If you don't return the original ROI, return on investment plus whatever X amount of percentage, they're not giving you money again. So where does he or she go to get their next movie made? We're promoting a lot of short films. I have a great admiration for short filmmakers because now on the producing end, when I produce it, I am more impressed by a filmmaker that's done 12 or 15 shorts over the last, 8 years than I am the person that did one feature over the past 6 years. Because the lessons they learn on every movie give them the skill sets and the knowledge and the wisdom to handle the world when it goes sideways, because it will always go sideways on a film set. I've never been on a show that didn't go sideways at least once. And it's like, oh, you got to rally the troops and pull together and figure out a way around this. So what we're doing for short filmmakers is we're trying to give them a platform so they can show their film to their colleagues, their families, their friends, their investors. But if we can drive enough traffic, and that filmmaker can drive enough traffic to the platform where it's like, holy, they just got 28,000 streams. Okay, let's peel off some money and give them a development deal. Go develop the feature-length version of this and let them develop it. The caveat as well, we're financing your development, you're bringing the film back to us. And this is the feedback loop. Now, let's be completely honest. I can't compete with Netflix or Shudder or Amazon or Hulu or Tube. I can't. Ian and I know this. But what we can do is find our niche audience that will support the filmmakers in watching their movies. We're not trying to have 1,000 titles. We're more about curating a dozen or 15 new titles a quarter, strictly from what we can see. They're all award winners. We always have had a movie on the festival circuit. I've had a movie on the festival circuit every single year since 2000. But I'm one of those guys that if I have my all access badge, I'm seeing everything. I'm in the movie. I'm just like, oh, this looks cool. Oh, that looks cool. So these are films that I have always thought they're brilliant. They need to be seen. But the problem is when they go with a big distributor and then subsequently are bundled to the big exhibitors, the Netflix, the Hulu, the Tubi, the Shudders, right? They get lost in the shuffle because maybe they don't have a big name. Maybe they just have a really good ensemble cast of brilliant young actors that, who knows, they might be huge names in a decade. They might not, but they're very skilled now. So everything we're doing is we're trying to curate these, what we call undiscovered gems on the indie circuit within our niche, which is horror, but only if they're thoughtful, with a unique vision, a unique voice, and something different. And we kind of run the whole gamut, because what I love about horror is it's not just gore porn, which I'm not a fan of at all. There's horror comedy, and there's body horror, and there's slasher, and there's ghost stories, and there's demon stories, and there's devil stories, and there's sci-fi horror, and there's horror thriller, and the list goes on, and the genres keep changing, which is always fun. But even more so, I'm trying to pick up some interesting foreign horror because it's the only genre that can cross cultural and linguistic barriers. Scary is scary, and it doesn't matter if it's from Taiwan or Colombia, if it's from California or Siberia. It does not matter. And what's really fun is every culture has its own mythology and folklore that American audiences are not privy to. I'm not privy to until I actually see it. I'm like, ooh, that's an interesting take on ghosts or werewolves or poltergeists or demons or religion, right? There is, and that is the only place where the studios are doing some interesting stuff. Like if you see Heretic or The Substance, right? Where it's like, well, these are thoughtful commentaries on, with The Substance is, ageism in Hollywood. That's the whole subtext of it all, right? It's kind of brilliant. Or Heretic, the mythology of religion, right? That's where thoughtful conversation is having without getting preachy. I can't stand the preachy filmmaker. I don't want to know your politics. I don't want you talking down to me as the audience member. If you want to bring up a point and maybe think about it and allow me to come to my own conclusions, like, oh, there's your brilliant storyteller. And that's kind of been the mythology of storytelling since we were sitting around campfires and the oral tradition.
Maybe
right?
that's why you like to sit around campfire.
That is exactly why.
I was thinking about this earlier. It's a cycle, you know.
It is.
You're getting into the play circle with the shamans, and the shaman is the director.
Well,
Who is the shaman?
The shaman is the actor, I think.
Okay, sure.
Right? The director is the chieftain.
That's true, but I would say I'm not sure the shaman is only the actor that is, because in shamanic ecstatic dances, the shaman dances the rhythm, and then everybody join. So I think those who join are the actors, and the shaman will be the writer.
Okay.
The storyteller.
Well, that's
the storyteller.
The storyteller.
Forgotten storyteller.
That's an interesting point. The storytelling is still the most important aspect. A good script will open doors for you, which Ian and I are finding with our current film, Psychopathy, will open doors to you that normally you would have thought were off limits, because we've been, indie guys for so long, making so many movies at that blood, sweat, tears, and a lot of curses level for so long. But, Ian found this script written by Tanya Klein and Jim Surreal, and they developed it together, and then they brought me on board. And so I read a lot of scripts. I read 10 scripts a month at minimum. Sometimes I'm reading 20, depending on time. And some are laborious. And then this was just like the old adage of every single word on a page is a piece of real estate. It's the most important real estate in the world, treated as such, where there's just an economy of words and a joyful, although disturbing, dark comedic element that it's a page turner. So when we first started, shopping this around, we entered it in all these screenplay competitions, and people really reacted to it, and it kept winning the grand prize and the grand prize and the grand prize and the grand prize, which opened more and more doors. I can't go too deep because now we're in, some very interesting deals. We'll announce in the trades once everything's signed, sealed, and delivered. But the writer still is the most important person in the entire process, because without them, then we're, a bunch of cavemen running around in the dark trying to find out what to do. The writer will provide this world and this map of what can be. That being said, they're not God, but they do play God. And as a result, if you develop it right with writers that are willing to develop the story with you, whether it's before the option or after the option, or this is your writing partner, whatever the case may be, allow that development period to happen. Because at the end of the day, once you start shooting a movie, you bleed money. Money goes so fast. And, you turn around and you think, oh, well, based on this, well, if we spend $20K a day, we could get this done. And it's like, $20K a day is not a lot of money on a film set. That's the, just the personnel. And that's a mix of union and non-union, right? Once you get all union, you're spending significantly more. American television, what is it? I think they spend $11,000 every 15 minutes based on a 12-hour day, which 12-hour days are our average. Ian and I actually are bigger fans. We like to do 10-hour days. And the pandemic kind of drove this home. Normally, we would I've done a 23-hour day on a movie, okay? But what happens is on a long-term shoot, you deal with exhaustion, and you have to deal with sickness. If a flu runs through the grip and electric department, you are done. And when people are exhausted, their immune systems are run down, and then they can get sick. We're like, let's fold in 4 extra days. Let's shorten our days. Now, here's a little trick. Union rates are based on an 8-hour day. 12-hour day is a double day for a union actor. So now you're paying 2 days, but only getting a day and a half of work out of them. You're better off shooting them in and out on a short day, letting them rest, letting them go home to their families and we're back to the hotel if you're on location. Let them decompress. The same thing goes with your crew, but we do 10-hour days for the crew because the crew's there an hour before everyone else, and they're there an hour after the actors leave. But you get so much more out of your team, and they're happier. Happier teams make better work.
I so agree with you. And from personal experience, we shot our feature, the only one I produced, in 12 days, 27 locations. It was suicidal. We were first timers, so we didn't know what we were doing. The director was first-time director. I was first-time producer on a feature. I thought I knew what I'm doing because I did a short comparison, right? Oh my God, this was such a mistake because you are right. Exactly. Everybody was exhausted. We were paying overtime, which depleted the budget. The budget was ridiculously small. It was $100,000 production and post-production for a feature film with 27 locations downtown Toronto. Yes, it's Canada, a little bit cheaper. Yeah, it's just, we used it in production, and then we got stuck for a year and a half trying to, typical story, right? Trying to do the post-production without budget and trying to get the closing deals and distribution to pay for the post-production, right? So, and what happened is over time, it became extremely exhausting for everybody. I was like sleepless. I was like, and everybody was like this because everybody was working. So the idea of making it a little bit slower with 8 to 10-hour days makes total sense. When I was speaking about the 16-hour day, I meant 3-day shoot. Okay, this was like a short film. You can do 16 hours for 2 days. Maybe you can do for 3 days, but then you're done and you're dead. And even that, it's not that good idea if you can avoid it. But this is survivable. On feature, forget about it. So.
And, oddly enough, it still happens in television. When I first graduated college, one of my first jobs was a television show on NBC called Third Watch. And it was, cops and paramedics in New York City. And we used to call Friday Fraturday because back then you were delivering to episode, not to season as they deliver television now. They're delivering the whole season to the streamers. Back then, you're delivering an episode every 10 days, I think. So, but it was a 5-day shoot and then a 5-day turnaround. So Friday would always blend into Saturday, hence the term Fraturday. Now, as a union actor, I love the OT, right? The overtime would literally pay my monthly rent. Back then, New York City was affordable. You could be a young actor and actually make a living and pay your rent.
19th century?
This was the 20th century. Yes, but it was the late 90s, and my 1-bedroom in Hell's Kitchen was $873. Right, that same 1-bedroom now is like $4,500, and the pay rates have not changed that much between then and now. The rise of salary has not kept pace with inflation. Not for us, not for anyone. And I'm sure, regardless of industry, we're all feeling that pinch, that we're in this kind of hyperinflationary period in American society, that we're all looking at it. This is unsustainable.
Yeah.
And what the answer is, I don't know. If I did, I'd run for office, but then again, I don't like those guys anyway, so that's not my purview. But it is something that we all face. So how does that affect filmmaking overall? And the question is, where is the sustainable model? And who's trying to put forth a sustainable model? We're trying to do it in a very small way with a small subset of filmmakers. We'll always have an open door. We have what we call the forever open door film policy, that any filmmaker from around the world could submit their film to MovieVue, and we guarantee at least one executive will watch the film in its entirety. If we love the film, then we'll offer you a contract. We're doing much shorter term contracts because we understand we're a startup. We're a small company with, Ian and I have long track records, but the company doesn't yet. So we're doing 90-day contracts. Come, stream your film with us for 90 days. You make some money if you're happy. If we help get you some press, help maximize your press, and you want to renew after that, great. And if it's more important for you to then go to a bigger platform because mom back in England wants to see it on Amazon in the UK, then go for it, right?
Isn't it fascinating that people think, like independent, inexperienced filmmakers think that getting to Netflix it's good and achievement, and actually what happens is if your film is a small indie film,
it's $25,000. Yeah. Well, it's a $25,000 licensing fee for 18 to 24 months.
Exactly. Yeah. So you won't make back your budget, and the royalties are ridiculously low, and the contracts are small, right? So it might be better option actually to be on an independent platform.
That we believe it will be. We're doing everything we can to support filmmakers. You know, Ian and I always make the joke of we want to be known as the guys that get behind a filmmaker in a way that matters. See, you brought up the point, you blew all your budget in principle, and then you had to go raise more money for post. Well, the third leg of a film is marketing,
Which
nobody has.
exactly.
That's everyone runs out of it. And it is very difficult to get people to even know you exist without a marketing campaign, and a marketing campaign of substance. Now, we all know about the studio films because they will double the budget on marketing. So if it's a $50 million film, they'll do $50 million in marketing. I know he's a bad word in the industry, but Weinstein would turn around and spend $10 million on the film and $50 million in marketing. That's why those films were so successful. They also had a great nose for picking very interesting independent filmmakers when the industry is set up to encourage, absorb, and promote independent film, right? If you think about the first few classes of Sundance, right? You had, the Coen brothers and Spike Lee and Kevin Smith and Soderbergh and Tarantino and all of these filmmakers that are the influences for us, right? The next generation. We want to be able, but that no longer exists, right? Sundance still exists, but that truly independent spirit and the ability to promote multiple independent films to theatrical releases, that is not around anymore. We're trying to change the game. Long-term goal, we actually want to secure strategic partnerships with small mom and pop, independently run movie theaters across the nation. We're not looking to be the big dogs in New York and LA and Miami and Chicago. We're more interested in partnering up with, Lola's Drive-In in Lexington, Kentucky, or Des Moines, or anywhere, Cleveland and Memphis, and the entire country loves movies. The entire world loves movies. But the mom and pop theaters are struggling. Ultimately, what we'd like to do is do some type of deal with them, you know, small theatrical for a couple of weeks, and if it hits, great, and then we stream it? Or do we stream it first, build up awareness and press on it, and then do a limited theatrical release? We want to bring back the idea of fostering filmmakers in an environment that says, hey, we love what you do. We're willing to throw money at what you do because we think you've got a unique voice, before you get swallowed up by, you know, the development deals, you know, 8 years of what we call turnarounds, which is like you're stuck. Because I've had projects that, you know, it's like you're with a big publicly traded corporation, and they're like, we love it, we love it, we love it. And then there's a merger, and they're like, oh, you're jettisoned with the entire development department. Right? That's real experiences that I've had. We're trying to change the game in manners that it's like, it's okay. We're small. We get it. We're fine with it. But we got your back. And we can leverage your little bit of, you know, marketing via social media into articles on the AP, because we do have a strategic partnership with a company called Wealth of Geeks that is a consortium of bloggers and journalists and podcasters and writers that write, and they are members of the AP. They're syndicated. So we're actively trying to get our filmmakers interviews that now get dropped onto the wire, and now you're in the Lexington Times, or you're in the Fox 28 in Seattle, and that kind of coverage, that when you just sign off with a distributor that packages you in a bundle with another 23 films that gets dropped on all the VODs, man, you're on page 40 on iTunes, right? You're long down the list on Vudu or Freevee, or, you know, the other thing is what we thought was, you know, this great element of broadcast in the form of the streamers has now just gone back to the same. Now it's advertising. Now what happened to seeing a movie without commercials? Now, no commercials ever if you pay for the premium. And especially with horror, see, the type of horror films I love are ones that slowly build up tension. Okay? That way, the jump scares work. If you're slowly crawling up my spine, when you hit me with that jump scare, I'm out of my seat. That's part of what made Paranormal Activity so brilliant. Oren knew how to build tension. Oren Peli, the director. He understood that. How are you going to build tension if there's a commercial every 10 to 12 minutes?
Yeah, it's abomination. I can't stand it. I don't have a TV because of commercials. I cannot watch a movie which is interrupted. I don't even want to go to the washroom, you know, like I just need to embrace the movie as it is and suspend the disbelief. And in horror, it's a horror to
It is. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is like, so the question that always comes at me is like, well, I can see horror films on Tubi. Sure you can. You're going to see a commercial every 10 to 12 minutes that will ruin the flow. And so much so, I had a movie that I did during the pandemic that we got a distribution deal and we delivered to all the VODs. The distributor was actually a very kind, wonderful woman who said, listen, choose your commercial spots, give them more than they're asking for, because if you don't, they're going to go in and they will snip it in the middle of maybe your most dramatic scene. So she was a brilliant guiding force. I still got a great relationship with her because I think she's one of these rare souls that you call up and say, Linda, I have a question. Do you have 3 minutes? She's like, sure. I'll right. And she's always there for you. And I love her for it. The trick is, though, you could do that with a comedy. right? And you could do it with a drama, and you could do it, you know, in an action film. But again, to be scared, you need to be fully submerged. You can't be what I always crack up about the 3-device people. They watch the TV, they got the iPhone and the iPad, you know, it's like, right? You can't be that with a horror film. You really have to pay attention and commit. And so it's almost like you're giving yourself over to the storytellers. Tell me a story. I'm ready to be scared. And then if, you know, ready to be scared and then a Huggies commercial pops up in the middle of it, it's really not working. So
you commit not to have the commercials.
yes,
be a
yes,
part
no,
of-
no. We are not AVOD. We are TVOD and then free content only. So all of our shorts that we have are multi-award winning shorts. They are always free. Our deal with those short filmmakers are, we're going to promote you. We're going to promote your career. We're going to get eyes on your movies. We expect you to promote you and your career and your movie as well. We'll meet you at the halfway point. And then for the features, it's a transaction. I want to watch this film, and it's $3.99. Same thing you do with Amazon. The only difference is the money that's paid out to the filmmaker is a minimum of $1 a stream. Amazon's 2 cents,
Amazing.
right?
Amazing.
So, and I'm not, what Bezos has done is, you know, pretty incredible. This is not a bleep the man mentality. Not for me. I'm not looking to stick it to anyone. There's enough guys out there that want to stick it to the man and go have fun. I don't have the energy for it. What I do have the energy for is falling in love with movies, falling in love with filmmakers, and doing everything I can to get them out there and get new audiences and new eyeballs on their movies. Because at the end of the day, they are the next generation. And if we don't foster them, then we are going to be stuck with what I am seeing as a whole lot of schlock and cookie cutter formulaic movies that don't surprise, that don't delight, that depend on giant explosions, that depend on CG and all of this kind of silly, hokey stuff. And again, I'm not attacking the Marvel world. There's enough fans out there to make them happy. But I want movies that stick with me. I want movies to stick with you, our audience. And we want movies that we think this filmmaker's got something to say. There's something different. Even the way they just broke every rule of framing there is, and it's delightful. Who are you? Please, let's hop on a phone. I'm not one for Zoom. I like old-fashioned phone calls. But if you want to see my face, we'll Zoom. That's fine. But I love hopping on a call and randomly, dude, I saw your movie at such and such festival. I think it's brilliant. Would you consider coming with us? These small little upstart that's trying to shift the balance of power more in your favor. This is our spiel. This is our MO. This is our belief system. You want to take the journey with us. It's a risk, but you know what? So is making movies. And we've got some great movies that I love, filmmakers that I've worked with, or that I've seen their movies on the festival circuit that I've just been like, you're incredible. People need to see this movie. But it's a shame because so many brilliant filmmakers that have been on the festival circuit, when we first launched, I've got relationships with so many really skilled filmmakers. They're just a phone call away. Call them up and they're like, yeah, dude, I signed my rights away for 5 years. Yeah, not my movie anymore. They got it for 7 years. They got it to 10 years. And they're so, you could hear the regret in their voice that they made this beautiful piece of work that got scooped up by a corporate entity and then buried. and it's
It might be actually a conscious strategy, because one thing is to buy potential winner on the market. That's why they do it. But another one is to prevent companies like you to have good movies. Because if you get a lot of good movies on your platform, then there is a risk to the Netflix, even to big players, right? People will slowly move away. I wanted to ask you like something very business-like. So Pasha, right? We worked on a
yes.
movie together. The only film he did, maybe not the only, but one of very few films he did as a director, he's normally a DP and producer, was a film with Van Damme.
Okay.
And Van Damme is not like older guy, and
Still in better shape than we are.
definitely than me, yeah. Although I'm working on it. Maybe we'll invite him, and see who is. No, sorry, just kidding. Don't kill me. So basically, he did this film, and they didn't make that much money in US, but they made millions. Guess where? Millions.
In Europe,
Mm-mm.
South America,
No,
Asia.
in China specifically.
Okay.
Right? Because I don't know if I don't know much about distribution, right? But I don't know if it's being ignored or it's like people don't think about it as the first thing. There is followings of specific actors which are completely different than actors, celebrities in US, in different countries.
Yes.
And you can have unbelievable large audiences in this country. So I think that's a potentially interesting thing to look into.
It is.
Hollywood,
But
yeah.
so foreign territories, sell-through windows are 63 of them. China has always been a market with a high barrier of entry. They are very strict on what you're allowed to show. Okay. There's no diversity in films that get distributed in China. There is no homosexuality to be shown in China. There is no American value or capitalistic theories. There is no political underpinnings of films to be released in China. So if that's a market you want to go after, you'd better study it and find out all the don'ts, and there are tons. If I'm not mistaken, the Chinese don't believe in ghosts either. So you're not distributing a ghost story in China.
Might be because it's against the materialism, historical materialism of Marx
Right.
and Mao.
So as far as other territories, yes, all different actors. I have great value in Latin territories, in Brazil and Portugal, in Spain and Italy. Every time I go to Rome, I get recognized, right? Here in the US, my wife recognizes me, and that's about it. There are other actors that normally in the US you're not excited about at all, but in the EU, they're big sellers. So that's always a consideration when you're assembling your cast, because there are different sell-through windows. Okay, so he's got value here, but no one knows him in Europe, or she's got value in the United States, and no one knows her name in South America. The UK and Australia are actually one territory, which is kind of a shame because they're two really massive markets, but they're combined. And if you're selling it, you're selling one territory. You got to be careful if your North American rights are all of North America, or are you splitting up between the US and Canada? Canada's got a great movie-going culture. Everyone loves movies, but in different ways. If you want to talk about people that love movies, like overall a culture, the Indian culture is by far the culture that loves, like it is an event. I was in India for 10 weeks back in 2011. And the way they watch movies is just fun. right? And their movies are fun. You know, the only exposure that a lot of American audiences ever had was like Slumdog Millionaire. But, you know, Danny Boyle was smart enough to do the big dance number at the end of that film with all the characters, which is a tradition in Indian cinema. And it was joyful. It was absolutely joyful. So different cultures watch different types of movies and have championed different actors. In Europe, Dolph Lundgren is still huge. American audiences, do they remember him? They may, if they saw, I don't know, it was Rocky 3, 4, something. He was the big bad villain in it. But in Europe, he's still huge, right? So this is this is where it gets a little bit hinky, that you're thinking about how to make your movie, but you also have to think about how to market and sell your movie and where you're going to sell your movie before you shoot frame one. And that's why I always say to my partners, we're all always on the same page. We develop. Then we poke holes in it and see where the weak spot, and then we develop some more before we commit real dollars to it. But the development phase is still, it's not free. You know, you're still spending money because you have to invest in the writers, and you have to invest in legal, and you have to make sure everything's clean, and you have chain of title and all of these things. And then, you know, are you going to attach a cast and then go after finance, or you're going to self-finance? You know, I don't have the ability to self-finance. We attach a cast and then we go out and say, hey, we've got this and this star, and are you interested? But we also have long enough relationships in the industry where we could call a sales agent and say, what's this guy worth? Because that's another thing that the industry is sideways on. It used to be that an actor's quote, their salary, was based on their overall value in sales. So if the actor, and I'm making up numbers, if the actor sells through on average $300,000, then his or her quote would be $150,000. Well, when the streamers came on board and started streaming, they overpaid everyone. So now you have actors that have $100,000 in value in foreign territories, and their quote is $500,000, $700,000, $900,000. And it's not possible. You're guaranteed to lose money on this. And now you're depending on, well, the 1 in a million shot of this movie going viral and getting massive grassroots word of mouth buzz behind it. And that's a very tricky area that a producer has to navigate. Again, you know, the one thing, if anyone can take anything of value from today's podcast, I was about to say webcast, but I'm dating myself, right? Is that you build relationships slowly over decades, because those relationships will always come back and help you if you invest in them over the course of your life. This is the one lesson I wish someone would have pulled me aside at, 22 when I first came into the industry. Stop worrying about everything and just start building real and genuine, not transactional. You will have transactional relationships, of course, but build real and genuine relationships, because they will help you. There is great value in being able to call an older, more wizened, more seasoned professional in the industry and say, hey, I got a question. Do you have 5 minutes? That's my favorite thing about email. When I call, people pick up the phone because they assume it's important. And I'm still one of those guys. I will call you first. I'm not going. If email is like, oh, it can be ignored. I lose emails all the time. I'll get a phone call from good friends like, dude, I emailed you 4 days ago. I'm like, oh, I didn't see it. Sorry. Why don't you just call? You can call me anytime between 6 a.m. and midnight.
It's more personal at a call, for sure. You know, the new generation only texts if you call somebody, it's considered rude. Like when they're 19, you don't call each other. From what I heard.
No,
From my kids. Yeah.
I've heard the same, but
I love phone
I
calls.
don't call 19-year-olds, so I'd be a little bit creepy if I were, right?
Well, maybe this is the next star, you know? Who
Yeah,
knows?
if he or she's going to be the next star, then I'm probably calling their manager who's 50 or 60 and saying, "Hey, I think so and so is really an interesting actor. Can you set up a meeting
Yeah.
and follow those channels?"
Since you need to go soon, but I wanted to hear about whatever you can tell me, if you can tell me about Psychopathy, about the next project. Can you speak about it, or we have to cut it?
Well, I can speak about half of it. Okay. It is wildly inappropriate, darkly comedic, smart, shocking, and we think it can be next year's breakout horror film. It flips the script on just about every tableau and taboo that you've seen in movies. It is witty and sarcastic, and the characters, you don't know who the good guy is and you don't know who the bad guy is. Are they all bad guys? There are no good guys. Yes, there of course is a hero. We're out to actors now that I know and love, that American audiences were like, "Oh, I love that guy. Oh, I love her." They're brilliant actors. I cannot say their names because we're in the midst of contractual negotiations, and once everything's signed, sealed, and delivered, then those announcements will go through the trades, Variety, and whatnot. We'll announce that, and we'll be able to talk more. But we're also doing some interesting things, as you know, with the holography. So we'll be amongst the first films in the industry that will use practical holography in the film. And that will change the way audiences see a movie. And I think we'll flip some wigs, as we like to say, like, what? How did these guys do that? Where did, and freak out the industry as well, because no one's looking at it. We've got, you in, that you've been working on this technology for now 7 years, or even longer. I've been working with you for 7 years
I'm
on it.
expecting a technical Oscar for that film. So
And I think you deserve it. We can pull it off. I think it's going to be so much fun, and it's going to really make people go, these guys pushed the envelope. And it's not just, me and Ian, but it's Lucas Hine, the director, it's you, it's our cast. We're all, we've got Vincent Gaustini, running practical special effects for us. And, he did World War Z and Requiem for a Dream and Last of the Mohegans and these kind of, Lucas is a Sundance director with his last film, Mope. We've got a really good team on this. We've got some great backup from a packaging agency. We'll announce once everything goes through, but we've got some passionate rebels in our corner that want to flip the script, and we're really excited on it. If we do our jobs correctly, it's going to be one of those films where you're laughing 1 second, then you go, oh, what? And like it really shocks. And that's a complete credit to Tanya Klein and Jim Surreal, the writers of it, that developed this in a manner that said, we want to shock and awe you and delight you all at the same time. It's a script written for audiences to enjoy. There's no political underpinnings. There's no lecture. There's no commentary. It's just a joyful movie for audiences to enjoy. And that's, Ian and I watch lots of movies. We're kind of geeks that way. And we're trying to get back to movies for audiences, not movies for executives to wave their wand of what I believe. I don't give a shit what an executive believes. I do give a shit what an audience enjoys, because I'm an audience too. And that's why we could have watched any movie last night. But the three of us decided to go back to a movie in the 90s that was just fun. The acting was fun. The writing was sharp. The stunts were joyful. It was like you were smiling. There were so many moments where we laughed out loud at what, Val Kilmer was saying in the midst of, when him and Johnny Ringo get into it, right? It's just like, here's a little sidebar. I'm Your Huckleberry is actually old Western. A huckle is the handle on a coffin, and the hucklebar is the coffin carrier. So when he says, I'm your hucklebar, he's saying, I'll carry your coffin. Most people lose that. Wasn't it? Yes. Yeah. Which is really kind of a big insult, right? Which is kind of, again, it's joyful. And the entire cast was magnetic.
Yeah, and this way we made a circle. We started with the tombstone and we're ending on the tombstone. And
I would like to do a quick plug.
Okay.
So the platform that I've been talking about, MovieVue, MovieVue.com, we are available on all of the app stores for a free download. Come on, check us out, watch some free content. You don't have to commit any dollars. But know this, you will be supporting the next generation of filmmaker, of great filmmaker, if you decide to come along this journey with us and watch these films that are very difficult to find everywhere else. We take a lot of time to curate great movies. We're doing it because we love movies and we feel like we have an obligation to the next generation of audience to show them the brilliance that is out there and hopefully inspire the next generation of filmmaker to say, you don't need a ginormous star to make a great movie, but you do need some skills and you do need some backing and you do need some marketing, all of which we are looking to provide to filmmakers. We have a forever open door policy, and a movie could come from anywhere in the world. Our only requirement is it's got to be good. It's got to be damn good. And they are out there. Our deliverables list, for those of you who know what it is as simple can be. We're looking to always do extra add-on content because, like my brothers, they love movies, but they're always asking me, how did you guys do this? How did you do that? So we'd like, when we acquire films, to do your BTS, the behind the scenes, as part of the free content so people get to go on this journey with you. We will back you and promote you like no other platform will, unless you're a big name. And then if that's the case, you're with those big guys and making millions of dollars. This is more about the future of cinema and who the future storytellers are. So come on, hang with us, join the horror revolution, and we hope to see you at the movies.
And by the way, links to that will be in the description. This is not a sponsored advertisement. I'm doing it because Jim is my friend and I think this is a brilliant idea for filmmakers. So you can download the app and you can have a contact information find contact information in the description. Thank you, Jim. This was all wonderful.
Christoph, an absolute pleasure. Always. I love our conversations.
And let's do a next movie.
That's right. For sure. We will.
Thank you.